The Beverly Hillbillies tale is one Americans recall with laughter, nostalgia, and affection, but behind the bright television screens of the 1960s and early 1970s, there existed a much more sinister narrative than the audience could have ever conceived. The Clampetts, on the outside, were a charming hillbilly family who hit oil and suddenly found themselves hurled into the glamorous anarchy of Beverly Hills. Week after week, viewers tuned in to watch Jed, Granny, Ellie Mae, and Jethro try to navigate the wild collision of country naivete and city smartness, making fish-out-of-water comedy a cultural sensation. But beneath the sitcom's seeming sweetness and humor, the actual life behind the scenes was very different. Battles, competition, litigation, sabotage, and shattered friendships that would leave its stars traumatized forever. In order to realize how the easygoing laughter of the Beverly Hillbillies masked so much bitter reality, it is necessary to burrow deeper into the past of its creation, the halcyon days of its popularity, and the agonizing decline that ensued. Right from the start, the show's popularity was shallowly accessible. Paul Henning, the show's creator, had conceived something that seemed near blasphemous to TV executives initially. What if a poor mountain family became instant millionaires and relocated to the wealthiest enclave in America? The humor, Henning contended, would result not from the Clampetts, but from the juxtaposition of their naivety with the preposterous Beverly Hills extravagances. CBS executives were hesitant at first, but they eventually approved, scheduling the pilot as a test. To everyone's surprise, the test screenings had people rolling on the floor laughing. The idea was new, and the cast's chemistry was undeniable. It didn't take long for CBS to see that they had hit the jackpot. Casting was key to making the show a success. Buddy Ebsen was selected to portray the patriarch Jed Clampett. Ebsen was already an accomplished actor, one with down-to-earth charm and homespun popularity. He personified Jed's wisdom, humility, and equanimity leadership, presenting himself as a surrogate father figure not only to his on-screen kin, but also to the millions of fans who viewed him each week. Nancy Culp played Miss Jane Hathaway, the smart and capable secretary to banker Milburn Drysdale. She added wit, sarcasm, and a keen intellectual counterpoint to the show, balancing the Clampetts' country naivety. Donna Douglas played Ellie Mae, the stunning Southern beauty with a strong affection for animals. She soon became the show's breakout star, beloved for her wholesome goodness and naivety. Last but not least, Max Baird Jr. played the klutzy but endearing Jethro Bodine, whose bumbling behavior provided constant laughs. As a cast, this group transformed Henning's peculiar little concept into one of television's greatest hits. Straight from its first season, the Beverly Hillbillies was nothing less than a phenomenon. The series zoomed to the Nielsen ratings #1, even holding that spot in 1962 and 1963, unprecedented for a brand new sitcom. America's families rearranged their family schedules in order to see the Clampetts, and advertisers rushed to purchase commercial time during its broadcast. Terms such as cement pond became part of the national vocabulary. Kids emulated Jethro's silly smile, and women throughout the South eagerly identified with Ellie Mae's combination of beauty and strength. For almost a decade, the Beverly Hillbillies was more than a television series. It was a part of American culture in general. But even at its peak, there was trouble in the making behind the scenes. The initial big rift was between Buddy Ebsen and Nancy Culp. Jed Clampett and Miss Hathaway on screen easily played off each other and were responsible for some of the show's funniest moments. Off-screen, however, things did not go that smoothly. In the mid-1980s, Nancy Culp turned to politics, standing for Congress as a Democrat in Pennsylvania. To her surprise, Buddy Ebsen went on record in opposition to her candidacy, doing a radio commercial for her opponent. Nancy is so sure of the charm of Miss Hathaway, Ebsen stated, but real life isn't the sitcom. I think that the audience won't accept what she is seeking. The sense of betrayal was deep. Culp subsequently disclosed that she was blindsided, stating, "Buddy was never the sweet man the public perceived Jed Clampett to be. He intruded into a situation that did not exist for him and destroyed my career opportunities." Their professional friendship was destroyed, and the acrimony between them became one of the most heated feuds in television history. Donna Douglas, on the other hand, had her own battles. To millions, she was purity, sweetness, and Southern charm. But beneath the soft-spoken facade was a woman of steely determination. In the 1990s, she sued Disney and Whoopi Goldberg, claiming that her story concepts had been plagiarized and turned into blockbuster movies. Even though the courts ultimately sided against her, the suit introduced the public to a side of Douglas they'd never seen before, a combatant who refused to be dismissed and taken advantage of. For a woman who'd always been typecast as a Southern doll, such bravery was unexpected. Donna also introduced the production to her love of animals, tending to demand live pets be used in scenes in order to add realism. One day, though, a live animal got loose while they were filming and created a scene, prompting the producers to prohibit her from bringing personal pets on set ever again. For Douglas, this was a minor but significant indicator of how her own interests tended to conflict with the strict policies of Hollywood. Max Baird Jr., Jethro's actor, had perhaps the most conflicted legacy. His characterization of the hapless but likable cousin pleased audiences, but it established his career on terms he could not have foreseen. Hollywood directors would not cast him for anything but Jethro, relegating him to typecast roles. Disheartened by his own success, Bear began directing and producing, establishing a second career off-screen. But even this route was not without conflict. He was involved in a bitter court battle with CBS over the utilization of Jethro's image, asserting the network had licensed branding and merchandise without consent. "I don't own Jethro," Bear once bemoaned, "but Jethro has made my whole career. I just wanted to be treated fairly for the legacy I helped build." His long-standing fight with CBS was emblematic of how actors in the era frequently felt helpless to resist the studios that owned their images and fates. Production of the Beverly Hillbillies was also marred with behind-the-scenes scandals. Buddy Ebsen frequently clashed with the writers, insisting that elements from his own life and experiences be woven into Jed Clampetts' character. Though Ebsen's seniority gave him leverage, his demands sometimes frustrated the creative team. Max Baird Jr., eager to prove himself as more than just a comedic actor, once experimented with directing. He wanted to film real explosions for one shot instead of special effects, almost getting the crew hurt and igniting fiery arguments over safety. These moments gave away the ambitions of the cast frequently conflicted with the strict format of a network sitcom, leaving deep wounds that never recovered. Nevertheless, for some period of time, none of this to the audience. Viewers stuck by the show, and the ratings remained firm. The program lasted 9 seasons, creating an astonishing 274 episodes. It earned Emmy nominations, won for Nancy Culp, and found itself a staple of CBS's lineup. Merchandise, advertising tie-ins, and non-stop reruns kept the Clampetts populating American living rooms, even as its critics decried the show as lowbrow entertainment. Not that it mattered. The audience adored it, and its place in popular culture was cemented. But when the 1960s transitioned into the 1970s, things began to shift. America was gripped by social upheaval, civil rights protests, anti-Vietnam protests, and changing urban values. Audiences no longer wanted the easy rural-urban comedy that originally characterized the Beverly Hillbillies. The plots, which had been novel and preposterous, now were repetitive and stodgy. More youthful audiences asked for a representation of real-life modernity, not parodies of Beverly Hills hillbillies. Meanwhile, CBS programmers made the decision to shake up their offerings, eliminating rural sitcoms for more urban, up-to-date shows. This notorious rural purge did in the Beverly Hillbillies, even with its dedicated fan base. By 1971, its last episode had aired, bringing down the curtain on almost a decade of laughter. To fans, it was a jarring and painful conclusion, but for the network, it was merely business. The downturn had been inevitable. Scheduling conflicts within the cast, stale plot lines, and changes in audience tastes had worn away the show's supremacy. Even in its twilight years, though, the Beverly Hillbillies was one of America's favorite sitcoms. The aftermath for the cast was sweet and sour. Buddy Ebsen transitioned into starring in Barnaby Jones, demonstrating his range and solidifying his place as a television icon. Nancy Culp, though heartbroken over her unsuccessful political campaign, continued to be admired for her wit and strong personality. Donna Douglas embraced her persona of Ellie Mae, traveling to churches and giving speeches while establishing herself as one of television's longest-lasting icons. Max Baird Jr. persisted in his legal struggles and attempted his hand at other business endeavors, constantly struggling with the shadow of Jethro. None of them would ever be free from the roles that had made them stars yet stifled their careers. Today, when viewers watch the Beverly Hillbillies again in reruns and streaming, they are reminded of the innocence, laughter, and charm that made the show popular. But the behind-the-scenes tale is another story, one of competition, ambition, betrayal, and lawsuits. And it is this dualism that makes the legacy of the show so intriguing. On television, the Clampetts symbolized love, family, and resilience. Off television, their performers struggled with resentment, disillusionment, and the dark side of Hollywood. Ultimately, the Beverly Hillbillies was more than a sitcom. It was a reflection of the era, a reflection of the American cultural conflicts, urban and rural, plain and refined, tears and laughter. Its ascension and descent say more about television history, but more about the tenuous threads that bind those who make our dearest memories. For the millions who wept with the Clampetts, the show will always be a part of television history. But to those who experience tragedy, it is a much more tangled tale, a reminder that every laugh track has a human narrative of hardship, adversity, and survival.